Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Kung Fu. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This is easily going to be one of my favorite episodes. I mean, it's just so much fun. Because I love, there are stakes in the episode, but they're pretty low, and just this, it's just a very, another, shenanigan-filled episode. It's kind of because obviously they kind of make, it's kind of like the Clementine episode when, Althea's car was stolen. It's almost like that shenanigan. It's that very same aesthetic or whatever. I wonder is it, the same writer, a writer or director from the episode, because it definitely has that same feel. There's some, stuff going down, but it also has, this, once again, fun, shenanigan-filled, aspect to it. But, obviously, I love how it almost has, what is that, I always forget the term, in media res thing where you start at the end and kind of work your way backwards type of situation with the cold opening of this. First starting the night before the grand opening, then the night of the grand opening, and then the morning of the grand opening, and doing it that, kind of almost this hangover thing, and it's Carrie walking in and is what the hell happened here? And Mei Ling is I swear I can explain everything. So they're trying to put the restaurant together, getting ready for the opening night. And, everyone's kind of scattered off doing their own thing. Ryan's trying to get a gift for Sebastian because Sebastian got him a gift. And it's and he was oh, don't worry, I got something for you waiting for you at the restaurant. And even being wait, why did I do that? Because it's the whole thing. He even talked to Althea about, right, they had this thing going on where, both, now that they've kind of cleared things up, he, gave Sebastian a little more room and space at their place. And now it's now we're both kind of competing to who could be the better boyfriend. So without even really thinking about it, he was oh, I got you a gift because you got me something so amazing. And it's why did I say that? So now working with Dennis, he's trying to get the gift for Sebastian the entire episode, good chunk of the episode, because basically he's trying to get him was it a Kabumoto, a really, really good chef's knife. And the guy who's hey, I was out having fun. I'm he just casually was yeah. I love how he basically, I feel like he didn't even have to go that hard in explaining what happened. But he's basically I took my ring off during a night of fun, and basically the dog ended up eating it. So he was I actually was going to take the money from this deal to go pay off the vet to get the ring back, because it's if my wife comes home and finds that, plus with the vet there'll be stitches involved, so that'd be kind of an issue. But he's but the moment I saw those nimble doctor hands of yours, I thought of a new plan. It's so you can get the ring out of the dog, because it's yeah, it's about the he was saying that it was about the past, and it's well, how do you know it's about the past? And he's I have a metal detector. And then it's we don't have to do this, but it's no, I'm gonna get a good gift for Sebastian. So he's I'm gonna get this knife, which he says at the end when he talks to Sebastian, he's oh, I will never tell you the story. He's he when his mom saw him later on, she was are you okay? He's no, I'm fine. I just looked like he had been through hell and back. So he's never again, never again. I've seen some stuff I can't unsee. So I love that. Obviously, Harmony Dumplings ended up getting targeted. So it is a situation of right, they're saying oh, don't open the restaurant, got X's on the entire family's eyes. You're oh, what's this all about? So now it's oh, Mei Li, you've got to have some enemies or something, right? She's what? I don't have any enemies. And then she's they suggest it's Melody, who was oh, I hope nothing happens tomorrow. That did seem super shady. But in that moment, I love it. She's oh, that woman, she's always had it out for me. In fact, that she even stole the name. It's oh, she stole my line cook, my aesthetic, went from Harmony Dumplings, Melody Dumplings. It's well, her name is Melody. It's well, I bet you her name isn't even really Melody. I bet you she changed it. I love how harder to paint Mei Li went. And so her and Sebastian went to investigate this. I love it. And they confront her because it's oh yeah, you stole our banner. It's yeah, you broke little Dumply or whatever, the little mascot, that Jin thing. And I love that Mei Li was yeah, sure, that too. She wasn't too worried about that. I even loved when she was explaining it to Carrie. It's yeah, that kind of got smashed. It's I made an executive decision. And Carrie's okay, because she wasn't too keen on that idea anyway, because she was going to bring it up to Jim, but Jim was oh, little Dumpy? And it's No. Carrie loves it because she had the heart to break Jin's heart about the whole situation. So I thought that was super cute. So, but then you're like, fine. Soon well, obviously they grilled Melody, but it turned out no, she wasn't behind us. She has an alibi. But then Nikki's like, right, whoever did it is actually after me. So I was like, wow. All right, so how many long listed enemies do you have? Ooh, there's 114 names on it, which is like, oh, which I love. Nadia's like, well, I mean, hey, that's impressive. It's like you're pretty much like Batman with this long list, this rogues gallery you got. But I also love that they actually bring up the fact is some of her opponents are still locked up, a few dead, but there are some that have reformed, which are like, oh, that's actually really good to know that some of those adversaries have reformed. But it turns out, I also love that Althea was like, oh, you remember so and so, and then it's like, oh yeah, what was that amusement park where everything went down? And Evan's like, oh, Dino Land, and she's like, guys, we do not have time for you guys to be out nostalgic about some of like the bad people I've taken down over the past 2.5 seasons now. I love it. And Althea having to be like, right, I can't hack in anything, but nothing says I can't tell you how to do it because I might not be able to touch the computers or use the internet, but still. So she, because I was about to say like, well, I guess because Nikki and Bo are in an awkward place right now, not really the time and place to really be contacting Bo being like, hey, we need your help with this, you know, because you're also a hacker too, so, but so it's like, right, Althea kind of had to lead Evan through it, so. Oh my god, Althea visiting Leaf and him being such a dick, and he's like, oh, let me enjoy this Clementine in front of you, and he's such a dick about it, and he's just like, oh, your car, and rubbing Althea's face in it, and then, you know, Althea's like, right, I don't have no money to replace it, you know, I lost my job, I lost my home, I'm living with my parents, now I have to help out with my parents' dry cleaning business, and the moment she said that, I was like, yeah. And he's like, yo, now you have to go back to the old family business. And Forever's like, got you. You're lying. You're bored. Because he's apparently been sending Nikki death threats, but she didn't really take them too seriously. Because it's like, right, you know. But now it's like, well, I guess I should have. But it's like, no, it's not Leaf. Because it turns out, like, hey, he was just bored and he was trying to hurt Althea. So she's like, yeah, you're not the criminal mastermind you think you are, and was about to walk away, and he was almost like, no, wait. He was almost like, oh, he enjoyed like the company of it. He was just kind of bored, and he wanted. I guess he would have done the same thing if Nikki had actually shown up. He was using this, and it's like, and I love that she's also like, right. Also, that's not a clementine, that's a tangerine, you idiot. I was like, oh my god, and even he was looking like, wait, it is. Like, I love it. I love how. Oh, I love it. It was so good. And then Nikki visiting her old adversaries, and they basically have a support group for people. There was only 4 people there. I'm curious if that group going to grow, or was it always just going to be those 4? But basically, it's like, yeah, these 4 have gathered together because it's basically a I hate Nikki Shin support group. And it's like, cool, Nikki had no choice because she was kind of stuck there, and they see her and she's like, oh, hey, because she's like, yeah, all they're basically doing is whining and complaining about me. And I love that she's like, hey, you. And he's like, Benny. She's like, yeah, Benny. It's like the dude she and Bo took care of like earlier this, at the very beginning of the season in the first episode. I love it. And also home dude who was running like kind of that fake martial arts school is now running a scheme because he's like, right, he's helping people through their anger, but he's also like, yeah, you have to like sign up for my premium subscription if you really want to like fully find yourself at peace. And so it's like, cool. It turns into like this rumble, which I'm sure the show has had those moments before, but for whatever reason, this episode in particular, that fight scene in particular, felt like something straight out of a Jackie Chan movie. Because it's just like, I mean, obviously, like, Nikki's used the environment to her advantage in fights in the past, but, like, some aspects of that sequence, like, all of it in conjunction felt like a Jackie Chan sequence, especially when she, like, the lady threw something, Nikki grabbed it, Benny, like, punched her hand or whatever, and it flew and hit the lady in the face or something like that. I was like, that felt like some, like, slapstick action that you see in, like, a Jackie Chan movie or something. And it's just like, oh, yeah, like, they're throwing stuff, and the guy gets hit, and I was like, oh, my eyes, and it's just like, man. And she's like, oh, I'm really sorry about all this. Guys, just like kind of let me go. We'll move past this. And so ended up taking down the teacher and it's like, yeah, kind of wrecked shop. It's like all that progress they made was completely undone. So it's like, right, you kind of have yourselves to blame that Nikki stepped in. You're bad guys. You shouldn't have been doing what you've been doing, but still. I thought that was such a, because I was like, oh man, because at first I was thinking like, oh, is it going to be kind of similar to the at the beginning where it's like, oh my god, all the bad guys have joined, like, I was thinking like all her enemies had joined together, and I thought Leaf was a part of that too, but then it's like, nope, they were both jokey situations, so, And I didn't figure out the Tracy of it all until a little before Mei Lee did. Because the moment she saw the letter, she was looking at like the letters and the messages written, and then like the letter from Tracy, and I saw Tracy's name written. I was like, Tracy, right? Nikki said her food was disgusting. I was like, that's hilarious. That's what this has all been about. It's like Nikki is being threatened by the enemy she didn't see coming. She even said later on, it's like, yeah, about a comment, someone I didn't remember, a comment I definitely don't even remember, someone I barely interact with. In fact, I did interact with at all, and I said something I barely remember. It's like, because Mei Lee figured it out first, and then Tracy rolled up. I was like, yo, Tracy looking super psychotic, bro. Especially when she picked up the knife and she was like, oh, this is my dream. I'm an actual professional chef. Like, I know, like, I was going to make it. She's like, I was being nice to the others, but I knew the job was as good as mine. And then she's talking about Nikki, and it's in slow motion when Nikki was like, bleh. And then Mei Lee was like, oh, I guess Tracy's a no. Because, like, Nikki moment ran into her, was like, wait, who are you? You're going to have to refresh my memory. It's like, oh, that's what that's about. And she's like, all right. Oh, it's like, right. I'm sorry, that worked out, but it's not cool for you to do it. This is my family business. It's like my family's business. And she's like, all right. Okay. You're right. I'm a calm down. But first you got to say you were wrong and my food was good. It's like, oh, okay. And everyone's behind her. It was like Sebastian and Ryan and Mei Lee being like, yeah, go ahead. And she's like, okay, yeah, your food was delicious, but she went too hard in the paint, and then it's just like, it was unbelievable at the point. She's like, you guys know I'm a bad liar. And then Tracy proceeded to go buck wild, being super destructive. And it's like, what? Wait, the way she's moving, wait, is she a gymnast or something? She started just smashing stuff. I was like, she is such a dick, especially when she got the bottle they were saving. It's like they should have drunk it when they had the opportunity. That 97 bottle they've had since like, it's the year that the restaurant opened, and she throws it against the lobster tank, and it doesn't shatter. She's almost disappointed. Everyone's like, oh, good. And then the lobster tank breaks, and you're just like, wow. And she was going to run away. She's like, oh, good luck with the opening. And then like Althea just happens to open it at the door and like bash her in the head. I love when they are cleaning up later. You can see her just laying on the ground. I can only assume that was her mom being like, I don't know why she's all about being like, it's not, I told her like kind of being a chef isn't her path in life, because she's a natural gymnast. And Nikki's like, yeah, I noticed. So I love it if we got to run into Tracy later on. It'd be even more hilarious if she ended up at one of Nikki's lessons or something. But I feel like, come on, you got to bring Tracy back. She's such a neat villain. I hope we get more with her. I mean, she's not really a villain, but she's kind of crazy and unhinged to like pop off like that. Because it's such a crazy reason to, because even Nikki's like, you're going to there's other job opportunities, like, because she's like, yeah, I've been denied other places too, but nothing that humiliating and not to her face. It's like, Nikki didn't think much of it, didn't think anyone was listening. It's like, I made a comment I don't even remember making. That's always the thing of like, yeah, you have to be careful. People will be holding a whole bunch of spice and grudge against you, and you won't even know, wait, what? Oh, I said this one thing that I don't even remember. It's like, yeah, that was a night, but it was such an offhand comment. It's like, oh, who cares? And that ended up setting off so many events. I was like, oh, it's so good. I even love when she threw the knife and it ricocheted and landed at the table. And Sebastian's like, whoa, is that a Kubomono? And he's like, and Ryan's like, yeah, I got it for you. He's like, oh, it's like, this is not the time for that. It's super cute and adorable, but still, this episode, like, I can't stress it enough. This episode was just so good because Jen happened to show up at the time too, and it was like just the shenanigans in the restaurant was amazing. And I do like the direct, like Jen obviously is kind of old school, so he kind of gets brought into the fold, and he's basically working under a dude. The dude's like, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do this. You're going to have this target, like, number of people you have to hit, up. And also you're going to have to, like, refresh this, like, send the information to this app. You have to update it, like, every 5 minutes, so on and so forth. But Jin did what he was brought on board to do. Like, his communication skills with the community. Like the lady, he ended up helping her because she had put in like a submission about like trash being left in front of her like store, because it's the first thing her clients see. And so Jen ended up helping her deal with that. Then there was like a luncheon where he ended up talking to like a whole bunch of other like high level people and got 97 names on the list. And all that mattered to that guy is, well, you didn't hit your target goal. Like, it's like, you need to, like, see things so black and white. It's like, because he's so focused on like, right, he was telling Jen, even sending a message being like, the people who are talking too long just kind of ignore them and move on. It just hit as many people. But it's like, no, when you add that personal touch, because that's people's issues with politics, it feels so informal. It's like you want your politician to feel like they're talking to you, that they understand you, that they, like, once again, that's Anthony's issue. He's not as connected with the community. So getting, like, you know, and that can have such a ripple effect. One person, you want everyone to realize and be like, yes, you are seen, you are heard. You want every person to feel like that. And I know, like, the individualization isn't always the easiest thing, but you know, that is a very important thing. Like, and I think across the board when it comes to politics, when it comes to education, which, once again, I'm not saying that's an easy thing when you have so many constituents. I mean, in a classroom, when you have so many students, it's hard to really personalize that, taking the time to personalize that education and stuff like that. I mean, I probably with the exception, maybe a private school, but I think even in a private school, you probably still have that issue. But still, it's kind of that same thing of like, right, let people feel like they are heard, and you never know what the ripple effect could be, because that one person could reach out to two more people, and you had those two people also reach out to like two other people, you know, it's so on and so forth. And it's like, right, he helping out one person led him to like 97 other people. So like, you know, so you never know like how that's all going to play out. And even Anthony's like, right, like what you did was so amazing. Obviously, he was helping keep the place clean. Like, it's not even I don't think Jen didn't even do it on purpose, but it's like Mei Lee put on the shirt because like her dress was ruined because of Tracy. So Anthony's like, oh yeah, like this kind of out of box thinking is what I was thinking. He was like, yeah, I totally planned this. So it's like, yeah, let's kind of talk about my role kind of going forward with your campaign and stuff. So I love how everything worked out in it. It was so good. Obviously, Nikki early on had to talk to Henry about everything. Obviously, he's feeling better. It's been about a week since the events of the last episode, since becoming a compass, which kind of puts him and Nikki in this very interesting spot. Like, obviously, after the energy from the 8 weapons from season 1, she kind of got imbued with that power. But Nikki's always been special because she is from the warrior bloodline, so there's already that. But then you add in like so like her and Henry have Henry's kind of in a similar circumstance as her, so he's readjusting to things. And now he finally has the truth, and Nikki's like, yeah, you have that, and you could tell by Henry's face, it's not the truth. You know, now he realizes, like, right, I went on this journey trying to find out more about myself, but was it even worth it in the end? Because I had something so good. Like, I was so busy trying to fill this void in me that's always been there, that I let go of something really great in my life. Nikki, which Nikki's like, right, no matter what, I might have moved on. I am seeing someone, but you will always be part of the family. And it's like, that's kind of complicated, especially because, like, right, she's the only, like, her family is kind of the only family he has left. So, and even her inviting Mei Lee over, not Mei Lee, inviting Pei Ling over, because initially Pei Ling had her reservations because she blames herself. It's like, right, she's staying in the basement of that, so that she can be away from everyone. But it's like, no, what happened was, you know, it wasn't your fault. Now we know, like, Zhao was still in there somehow, showing the pendant wasn't enough. But at the very least, you know, my mom doesn't blame you. She knows it wasn't you. So it's like, hey, let's like, you know, come visit a restaurant too, because, like, right, you are, because, and even Jen says it later on, it's like, because she was like, oh, thank you for inviting me. It's like, but you're family, you know, both literally and figuratively, you know, you are legitimately family. So it's like, yeah, you always have a space here. So I thought that was beautiful. And Henry showing up, and yeah, things are going to be awkward between him and Nikki, but things had a nice flow. You know, it's like, right, him showing up, everyone being like, hey, you know, happy to have him there. Althea asking Evan to be her investigator for her firm. It's like, right, you're looking for an investigator, and yeah, I might not be able to handle stuff on the tech side of things, but if we ever need to hack into something, I can give you the lay of the lands on, like, instructing you how to do it. So it's like, right, she won't get paid much, but she will be making a paycheck at all. So she's happy to kind of be able to finally get out of her parents' house and finally kind of be able to be on her own with Dennis yet again, you know, her and Dennis, so figuring things out on that front. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Obviously, this episode, we didn't get it, but eventually Henry and Bo will meet, especially because Nikki, her and Bo, it's kind of an awkward conversation, which she tried to keep things light, but they got too light, and now the conversation ended up fizzling out, so they hadn't really talked. And it's like, I I forgot what she had said that Althea was like, wait, you said that? She's like, no, you did. She's like, yeah, I did. It's like, you need to fix this immediately. So, but it seems by the end that they're back on the right page. And I did love that, like, the lesson of this episode actually kind of resonated and helped her in that boat situation. She's like, right, it doesn't matter kind of what you say, but just to kind of get things going, because she was so busy overthinking what her next words could be. But the fact is, she already dealt with someone who spent so much time overthinking something she didn't even remember saying. So now it's like, right, she kind of realizes, like, yeah, it's kind of crazy to be overthinking things. So just kind of taking that step forward and, see where things kind of go from there. It was a beautiful wrap up. Everything ultimately ended up working out. And I just thought it was just, once again, just a fun episode. But honestly, it's just like a very beautiful episode that's just like purely dedicated to the family. Like I said, there were some serious stakes with just hoping everything kind of worked out in the end. So I am curious, like, are we going to find, like, there's some part of me that's nervous, like, oh, please don't let Carrie turn out to be such a bad person or anything. Because I was, like, nervous about her, like, because she went out of her way to give Mei Lee such a shot that I'm feeling like, I mean, it seems like we're already done with the whole, like, because we know there was, like, a bigger group behind Home Dude from the actor who's playing Detective Ryan from Castle, but he was playing a guy that was hired to cause, like, some issues in town, so that it was, like, some lobbyist group that ended up kind of playing a part in that. It was, like, some higher-up group, like, we're using lobbyists to kind of help, like, make that whole thing happen. So I think that's still a through line, and maybe it will connect to Carrie. I hope not, because she seems like legitimately on Mei Lee's side. And part of me was almost wondering, like, we're going to find out that she's secretly, like, the boss or whatever, and that's why she gives Mei Lee such slack. But it's like, no, she was there with her employer, and you're like, oh, we have higher ups to answer to. So if you would think he would know if she was the boss or something. So that's why I'm like, nah, that doesn't seem like it's the case. I think it's just like Carrie sees the value in Mei Lee and the Harmony Dumplings and her family. But we'll see. It's just, I got this little inkling where I'm just like, please don't let her turn out to be the bad guy or anything. But we'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.